Hello guys, this is Marina taking Monty over his first ever bounce. I don't know what attempt this is because I was abroad at the time. And this is my first time riding him through the gymnastics. So actually we start with poles, just like Marina did the first time. And we were struggling a lot during this lesson. Let me just tell you that I actually knew very little about setting gymnastics. And the distances ended up being very questionable, but thankfully we kept it low and we took it very slow. And so here he ended up stopping, actually, but then walking over it. And here he took a huge leap, and I was riding it very defensively. So then Marina got on, I fixed the distances a little bit, and it ended up looking much better, but we ended it with just one bounce. And another little gymnastics, and here he stops in the beginning. This is pretty typical, so I'm not really like thinking much of it, you know. Anyway, this is after actually the second attempt, and he goes through it, and yeah, we're pretty happy. So actually this barn says gymnastics in the winter, and we just did the bounce part at this point because he had like little to no experience. There we actually added another fence in the end. Actually, we were working on just the bounces for quite a bit. And actually here the distance to the bounce is a little bit short. The gymnastics season for the barn ended, but we continued to put our own gymnastics in the outdoor during the summer. And so we just worked on a one stride, and we have added an oxer, and it's looking quite nice, quite straight. Right now we've started to add the rest and treat method in the end, which has really helped his motivation. And this was our last gymnastic before his long 2-month summer break. So actually we did pick up the height a little bit. This was our first full, so to speak, gymnastics after the break. The first gymnastics day after the break, we actually did just bounces, and he did quite well. And I think in this session we actually add a little oxer again, but this one took him by surprise and took me by surprise, I think. I wasn't sure if he was gonna jump it actually. But I was still pleased with it because he still tried. And also this oxer is probably wider than anything he has jumped previously, even though it's quite low. So I think he really puts a lot of effort into it. And as you can see on the landing, I'm not really doing a good job holding my body still, so he kind of lands on the forehand. But I eventually, well, I don't really fix it, but I try to fix it. So I give myself A for effort. And here he's about to trip, but I'm still happy with it because he still keeps going and picks up his feet and really saves both Marina and himself. This was one of our first times doing a 1 stride to a 2 stride, and actually Marina took him through this just fine. We still used the treat method and the treat and rest method. So actually we have a video on this, so I'll link it somewhere up here. If you want, you can watch that. There's even a GoPro perspective of that, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so things are getting a little bit more interesting here because we're finally adding some height, and it's nothing too big, but considering we've been jumping like negative 30 centimeters for the past months, it definitely felt nice to add a little bit of height, and it was about 95 centimeters. I think he could have done more, honestly, but I didn't want to push him too much this one lesson. Plus, Marina had to get on. But I think he knocked it like once or twice, and both times it was rider error. And you'll see in the last attempt with Marina, he actually overjumped it a little bit, which isn't a problem. He's just extra careful. It doesn't really like touching the poles. But for this lesson, we just stuck with the vertical because we were adding the height. And this is actually our most recent quote-unquote gymnastics, but actually it's just a bounce to a 6-stride line. It ended up being 7, but actually we decided to end it on that just because I would rather him take a shorter stride to the fence, especially to such small fences, because before he was always leaping towards them.